Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. All in crypto here, and we are outside once again whilst it is still legal to do so. And this video is going to be about Polkadot, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about why it is I'm bullish on Polkadot as a project and of course from a price point of view. And I think perhaps a good place to start is to talk about what initially attracted me to Polkadot and why it is I've taken such an interest in it. Because Polkadot, you know, when we look at the sort of lineage of the cryptocurrency market, of course Bitcoin spawned it, and then you had Ethereum that came along. There were many cryptocurrencies in between Bitcoin and Ethereum, like Namecoin, Peercoin, NXT, but Ethereum came along and basically said, look, let's extend on this idea of a global decentralized ledger, and let's add this capability of smart contracts to it. And of course, Gavin Wood, the founder of Polkadot, was fundamental in the development of Ethereum. He was the guy who basically built the Ethereum virtual machine, and somebody who played a staple role in getting the cryptocurrency space to where it is today, with thousands, tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies currently out there. But Polkadot essentially saw the issues that Ethereum was going to run into in regards to trying to do everything on one chain. And actually Ethereum itself, when you look at the direction that Ethereum, and you look at the recent roadmap that Vitalik posted, a lot of Ethereum's roadmap has to do with taking things off chain and trying not to do it all on the one chain, to try and do everything. If we look at what some of these blockchains are trying to do, they're trying to essentially facilitate the next web. And if you look at the kind of volume of transactions and usage that that would take, it's kind of impossible to do it all on one chain. I mean, you'd have to sacrifice security. We know about the blockchain trilemma. So Polkadot really came about, and this is what attracted me to it, to try and solve this problem by essentially creating this multi-chain world where actually you didn't need to solve and facilitate everything on one chain, but you have one chain, i.e. the Polkadot relay chain, that secures multiple chains. And you can really kind of think about Polkadot, and a good way to think about it is as a kind of supercomputer. You know, computers have cores in them. The more cores you have, the more powerful the computer. Polkadot is essentially a kind of version of a supercomputer that is trying to build the next generation of the internet on top of it. So this is kind of what attracted me about Polkadot, this idea of having one consensus that would enable and facilitate multiple different chains. And as somebody that was very interested in Cardano initially, you know, there's a lot of similarities between Cardano's Ouroboros and Polkadot's grandpa. Essentially, Cardano's Ouroboros, Polkadot just kind of put Babe on top of it. Now, I don't know who took what from what, but they are very similar. And if you look at Charles Hoskinson's early whiteboard videos, you can see him talking about how Ouroboros was always meant to, the underlying proof of stake consensus mechanism of Cardano was always meant to not just secure Cardano's layer 1, but ultimately secure an entire crypto space on top of it. And Polkadot today has 52 parachains, independent layer 1 blockchains that all leverage its relay chain. So I think Polkadot is way further ahead on perhaps this multi-chain, one consensus to kind of help consent multiple networks idea. And Polkadot's done very, very well thus far. I mean, Polkadot's been a huge success. The current state of Polkadot is it has probably one of the richest ecosystems, if you count Polkadot as one, in the entire crypto space. Right now there are 52 parachains on top of Polkadot, and these parachains are kind of equatable, going back to the supercomputer analogy, as cores in a computer. So you have 52 of these. In the last Decoded, when Gavin Wood gave his famous speech on Polkadot 2.0 and a proposed vision and direction for Polkadot to go in, he spoke about this idea of eventually having 500 to 1,000 cores, parachains, and the kind of capabilities that that would bring. And the beautiful thing about Polkadot, going back to what we said at the start, one chain can't do everything. You'd have to sacrifice security as a result of this. Whereas what Polkadot's done is they've said, okay, we've got the relay chain that we can use to offer security, and there has to be no trade-offs there. And our scalability comes from essentially duplicating that consensus for other layer 1 chains to kind of leverage. That's the kind of idea here. And right now there are 52 parachains. In the future there could be 500 to 1,000. And each one of these parachains, and they're currently called parachains, we're moving on to cores, which we're going to come on to a second, essentially almost doubles the capabilities of Polkadot. So Polkadot right now is exceptionally scalable if you count it as one and all the transactions that take place and that are facilitated via the relay chain. It's really scalable. It's got one of the richest ecosystems in the world. Most layer 1 or competing projects, and we know Polkadot has been termed a layer 0, essentially when people look to build on them, everyone has to fight for their transactions, their smart contracts to be put into the chain. Whereas with Polkadot, it doesn't do that. Again, it duplicates that kind of underlying consensus for these other chains, and essentially that allows it to kind of double its capabilities each time. So we're now at 52 parachains. We're going to move to 500 to 1,000. And there's a kind of change going on in regards to the parachain model that of course was proposed by Gavin Wood. And this makes me exceptionally bullish on Polkadot. So if we look at Ethereum again, they, going back to the roadmap, have really moved to trying to almost facilitate a Polkadot style thing where Ethereum becomes the kind of security chain and the other chains deal with the scaling issues, the privacy issue, whatever it may be. Polkadot is actually the furthest ahead in that multi-chain model. It's further ahead in the multi-chain model than any other chains out there. It's becoming a very popular model, and I actually think that Polkadot was perhaps first and the furthest ahead. The whole word parachain comes from this idea of having parallel chains running concurrent with the main chain. So again, in doing this, you can tackle the issues of scalability, you can facilitate whatever kind of usage it is, and you have the same guaranteed security as actually Polkadot itself. So this is huge, and we've seen it really take off. And this is only going to grow more and more. You know, again, 52 parachains moving to 500 to 1,000. Could you imagine what the Polkadot ecosystem looks like when that has taken place? And the interesting thing, and I'm very bullish on the direction that Polkadot's going, and I think Polkadot 2.0 is a great idea, because there is an issue with the parachain model, and that is if you're looking to build on top of Polkadot itself, you can build on top of the layer 1s in the same manner that somebody could build on top of Ethereum. But if you're looking to build on top of Polkadot itself and have one of these parachains cores, you need to essentially win a slot auction. Now, not everyone wants to do that. You know, it's expensive. There's a number of implications that make it not the most viable method for people to build on top of, and you want as many people building on your blockchain as possible, because builders equal value. If you think about the internet, and really the internet is just a combination of protocols. Okay, when you think about the internet, what really brought the billions of users to the internet was the people who were building on top of it, that were building the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the this, the that's. The same is very applicable to blockchain. So you want people to ultimately build on top of these blockchains and build use cases that bring millions and potentially billions one day of users into the Web3. So right now we're still at a stage where if you look at most applications that are built on blockchains, they're lucky if they have 10,000 to 50,000 users. In fact, I think on Ethereum it's only a handful of apps that actually have anywhere near 10,000 users. But we are going to start coming up with and seeing killer applications built on top of blockchains. And I think Polkadot is very well positioned to have some of those applications built on top of it. And with the shift to Polkadot 2.0, what essentially is happening is they are getting rid of this kind of concept of parachains and essentially moving to a pay-as-you-go model, kind of like what the parathreads were implicating, where you still have these cores, i.e. the parachains, think of the parachains as cores, but instead of you having to do a slot auction and have to be the winner of that auction, it's done by the kind of candlestick auction kind of method. You essentially don't have to do that anymore. Anybody will be able to build on top of Polkadot and rent out block space core time on these parachains. So the parachains that already exist can still conduct in the same manner that they want, but there's interesting things because now they can have 2 or 3 of these cores if they want to and they need the power, you know, if they need the scalability and all this kind of stuff. You not only will be able to do that, you'll be able to rent out slices of these parachains, these cores. And essentially what this will do is it will break down the barriers that are currently put in place right now in regards to having to raise the funds to get a parachain on its own. And not only that, there has been lots of talk about how actually you'll be able to build and deploy smart contracts perhaps on Polkadot itself, so the relay chain. So this is super exciting. Remember, developers equal value. Someone's going to build that killer use case. This is, in my opinion, increasing the probabilities and the likelihood of that killer use case being built on Polkadot because it's drastically lowering the barrier to entry for developers, okay, that want to actually utilize Polkadot itself, that want to have a core, that want to have a slice of a core, that might want to have multiple. And this ultimately is going to generate a lot of revenue for the underlying Polkadot consensus and protocol. It's going to increase funds into the likes of the Treasury. We're going to be doing a video on OpenGov very soon because I think OpenGov's been a huge success. Yes, Nirvana is not for this world. You know, there are issues with it, but there's been issues with, I mean, there's issues with the current democracies that we live in, you know, and of course, to think that a on-chain governance system was just going to launch and be absolutely perfect, I think is naive. Of course, there's going to be issues. We know that whales, of course, have a massive sway. There's parallels to that in the real world and issues that take place, but ultimately there's quite a lot of number of reasons to why I'm actually bullish on Polkadot, and I'm bullish on it from a point of view in regards to where it's come from and where it is today, and the fact that it's the furthest ahead out of any project on this multi-chain kind of idea. We're now seeing that this multi-chain idea was the right idea. Look at what all these blockchains are now, the direction a lot of these blockchains are going in, certainly Ethereum. Ethereum is basically relying on layer 2s and off-chain to basically make it a success and is now playing more of a role of the security chain, kind of the vision that Polkadot started with. And of course, if you look at where Gavin Wood came from, he came from the problems with Ethereum. He kind of left vowing to solve these problems, and I think he's done it with Polkadot. There are 52 parachains, it's got one of the richest ecosystems, and there's 52 today currently. There's going to be 5 to 1,000. We're moving to a far more accessible model in regards to actually utilizing Polkadot, and this all increases the probabilities of Polkadot having that killer application that brings tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of users to it. So I am unbelievably bullish on Polkadot. And again, just to talk about its ecosystem a little bit, we've been covering projects that are building on top of Polkadot. You can do everything inside the Polkadot ecosystem, and you can do it all interconnectively, and it offers an unbelievably scalable solution to essentially facilitating the next generation of the internet. So we are, to kind of conclude things, unbelievably bullish on Polkadot. We're only going to get more bullish as this idea of Polkadot 2.0 comes on. And stay tuned to the channel, guys, because we're going to be keeping you up to date week in, week out on Polkadot, the projects that are building on it, and the sort of progression that we're seeing, and the direction and the vision that it's going in. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more of these walk and talk videos, let me know in the comment section, and let me know your thoughts on Polkadot. That's all I've got for you guys. See you in the next one.